Is our government protecting us or purposely putting American families in danger? Today, we react to a fiery and courageous statement from Senator Moody, the newest voice on the Judiciary Committee, who just dropped bombshells about what the Biden administration is really doing at our southern border. Patriots, this one's a wake-up call. If you care about your safety, your kids' future, and the rule of law, don't skip this video. Let's break it down together.
Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am the newest senator here, certainly the newest on Judiciary, and I am so glad that I am here in this capacity now because I served as Florida's Attorney General and watched in horror as Biden and his handlers and the radicals in charge of his administration systematically and intentionally broke down all of the structures and security safeguards at the border. And it was only through litigation that we were able to uncover documents that showed their plan was in place from day one. In fact, when they started rolling out executive orders dismantling everything that the Trump administration had put into place, they were warned by those in the administration and Border Patrol and DHS that if you do this, we will immediately be overrun. We will immediately lose any control at the border, and we do not have the ability to keep pace with the detention capacity that will be needed. And in fact, ignoring all of those warnings by their own administration, they not only went ahead and issued the executive orders dismantling everything that Trump had put into place, they then asked for less money for detention beds. And the consequences and the chaos that unfolded not only was predicted by their own administration, it put law enforcement at the border at risk. It put families and communities at risk. It put our nation's sovereignty and security at risk as more and more people flooded into this country with previous criminal backgrounds and those that were on the terrorist watch list. And as I pursued litigation, a judge said, Biden and his administration has turned our border into nothing more than a meaningless line in the sand. And when there were warnings that our border would be overrun when Title 42 was expiring, Florida uncovered documents saying that their grand plan was to step back and let it be overrun. And in my litigation as Florida's Attorney General, I uncovered that not only were they pushing more and more and more and more and more historic numbers into our country unvetted, that they established quotas every day to make sure that Border Patrol pushed a certain amount of numbers into our country that was barely vetted.
Right. Off the bat, Moody makes it clear she's not here to play political games. As a former Attorney General, she saw firsthand what Biden and his radical crew did to our border. This wasn't accidental. This was intentional dismantling of every safeguard Trump put in place. Let that sink in. They were warned. DHS told them the border would collapse. Border Patrol begged them to stop. And what did Biden's team do? They not only went ahead, they asked for less money for detention beds. They knew what would happen. They did it anyway. Moody says Biden's admin set quotas for how many unvetted migrants to push into our country daily. Not just open borders, forced flooding of our communities with people we know nothing about. Many with criminal pasts. Some even on terror watch lists. Are you kidding me? Sheriffs across Florida were calling Moody, begging for help, because Washington was telling them to release criminals back into the streets. This is not compassion. This is chaos. This is a complete betrayal of the American people. And when she sued, the documents she uncovered showed that the Biden administration had no paper trail, just verbal orders to EAS and Border Patrol saying, stop helping local law enforcement. This was a calculated move to erase accountability. Folks, she's not just talking politics, she's talking real lives, families destroyed, law enforcement left helpless. And the worst part? The Biden administration fought to hide the evidence. She had to sue them again and again to bring it to light.
So as Attorney General, when I had sheriffs from all over my state calling me to say that the Biden administration was canceling detainers on criminals in their jails and telling them to release them back into the communities, I was horrified. Horrified not only because I work with law enforcement across the state, and I knew that was doing what that was doing to their communities, but horrified because I knew that went against not just the policies of Republican administrations, but Democratic administrations. It was a radical's wish list. They had changed the entire policy on whether or not we were going to deport serious felony offenders, and their agenda was no. And the resulting crime that occurred across this country as a result was predicted. I predicted from the beginning of this administration, I was one of the first states to sue when they stopped deporting people here illegally that were committing crimes against Americans in our communities. So the gaslighting that started under the last administration when Mayorkas showed up and said the border is secure, and I guess he thought the American people would believe that, it's still going on. There are so many felony offenders that are here illegally in our country that because Biden released them, this administration has to do the hard work of tracking people down and deporting anywhere from 11 million to 20 million people because we don't know who's in this country. On a conservative estimate, 11 million people is more than the population of 42 of our states. And most of those people were unvetted. So you're going to hear a lot about people here that just want a better life. But make no mistake, Biden and his administration purposefully unleashed those here illegally committing crimes on you and on your families. And it was intentional. And when I brought it to their attention that they were no longer even deporting those in federal prisons that were completing sentences that were here illegally, that they were taking them back to where they were prosecuted and pushing them into those districts like no other presidential administration had done, they fought me on giving me the information, and I had to sue them for that too. So we can have hearings all day long, and I can hear about these stories, but make no mistake, and the American public should not fall for this dim deception. This was intentional. It was purposeful, and they're going to roll out everything that they can think of to stop any sort of progress to shoring up and making this country safe again until they get somebody back in office that will do the same thing. So I appreciate you, Chairman, for standing strong, and I would like to ask Sheriff, I know we have a sheriff with us from the Lone Star State, from your state, and I want to just know if you heard the same thing from people, from sheriffs that were forced because detainers were canceled to release people back into the communities.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, Senator. They were forcing them to release people back into the community. And we have had a longstanding partnership with Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security, and our federal partners. And regardless of what is said, they were not issuing any orders to Border Patrol or to ICE telling them, don't enforce this, don't do that. But what the administration was doing was sending people to those stations and then giving them verbal orders. You're no longer allowed to help law enforcement do this. And much to Border Patrol's credit, they would sit down and figure out, okay, how do we circumvent this order and help them in another way? They would figure out how to help us in a way that they hadn't been strictly forbidden from doing until the Biden administration would realize that they had figured a way around that order. And then the Biden administration would issue a new verbal order to them, tell them they couldn't do that. And they would sit down and figure out another way. So the administration wasn't dumb enough to send out a paper trail. What they were smart enough to do is they were smart enough to send people to those stations and go, you quit helping local law enforcement. You quit taking these actions.
Well, indeed, they held back as much paper as they could until attorneys general like me and others pushed in court and got it and found the documents that showed they knew this was happening their first month in office. They knew we would be overwhelmed, and they did it anyway. And if I just might, Chairman, I am a mother as well, and I just want to say thank you. I can't imagine the loss of a child, but sharing those stories and making sure this never happens again in our country because we can follow the law, we can do what's right. I want to thank the parents that share their stories, and I want to thank every law enforcement man and woman who signed up to wear the badge and stand between chaos and order and good and evil and made sure that this country stands for what we were founded on, and that is the people governing ourselves under a rule of law. And that was so important, and I'm so grateful to them every day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hirano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can all agree.
Moody.
Patriots, this isn't just about policy. It's about our national security, our families, and our future. This administration is turning America into a lawless zone, where criminals walk free and our borders mean nothing. We must hold them accountable. We need voices like Senator Moody's to keep shining the light, but we also need you. Speak up, share the truth, call your representatives, demand border security, and demand leaders who actually care about protecting this nation. Don't fall for the lies, don't get gaslit, and don't stay silent. Like this video, share it with every patriot you know, subscribe for more real talk, and turn on that notification bell. The fight for America is just getting started.